According to some of our rivals, yesterday, Alabama should just give up football. But Jimmy Stein and I are going to try to have a podcast anyway.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, Alabama did not get Demarcus Riddick. I don't know if you've heard, but apparently that is a harbinger for things to come. We are hoping to get past South Florida this year and then sneak in and maybe roll our way to the blue and white game. What was it? The blue-gray game?
Blue-gray game.
It's been so long since I've heard about it. I've called it the blue and white game. We're going to the Penn State spring game. That's how bad things are, Jimmy. Anyway, it's Demarcus Riddick commits to Auburn, and you know what? More to it. It's fine. Everybody will find us another 5-star. We're going to talk about some other 5-stars. It's okay. Demarcus Riddick it's okay also to say Demarcus Riddick is a really good player that Alabama won and lost out on, and it's also okay to say we'll be okay.
Exactly. And as far as calling, I'm not trying. This sounds like I'm so what's it called when you're just spinning. I'm spinning. He's not really a 5-star in this one sense. He is a 5-star in the On3 industry ranking, but not one service ranks him a 5-star specifically. Not On3, not Rivals, not ESPN, not 24/7. He's not a 5-star in any of those services. It's just he's ranked so high on all those 4 services. Whenever the math is done, he's a 5-star on the On3 industry ranking. But that's not to minimize how good of a player he is. He clearly is a high-level prospect. Alabama wanted him. Alabama still wants him. Alabama's going to continue to recruit Demarcus Riddick all the way to signing day, which is in December. That's 5 more months of talking to this guy. Let's see how the season goes and see how it works out. Congratulations to Auburn, who has beaten Alabama for an in-state kid that Alabama would have liked to have signed. It's the first time that's happened in a while. That's why it's big news, right? I mean, this hasn't happened in a few cycles that Auburn has even signed one guy that Alabama really wanted, and they did. And this is what we've talked about on the show for a long time when Auburn hired Hugh Freeze, that the free pass is over and that Hugh Freeze is going to sign kids that Alabama would like to have. Now they've got one committed. And let's see what happens from here. Good player, not minimizing it at all. And Alabama's going to continue to recruit Demarcus Riddick from Chilton County, where the peaches grow, as they say in Georgia. But, a couple things. Alabama already has 3 inside linebackers committed in this class where Demarcus is projected to play. One of them from Germany. One of our favorite players, talk about Justin Okoronkwo. Still working on how to say that. Justin Okoronkwo. That's it. Justin Okoronkwo. He is committed to Alabama right now. And let's remind everybody, even though he's a 3-star, he's not rated as highly, probably because he plays his high school football in Germany and no one in America has really heard of him. But
Jimmy, that's a fair reason. That's a very fair reason. If you play football for an imaginary league and somebody's like, hey, we think you're a 3-star. He's like, okay, but I play against a bunch of imaginary people. They're like, I know, but we've seen you. We can't rate you a 4-star yet. If you go to the all-star game of imaginary kids, maybe we'll give you a shot. But Jimmy, it's not about guys you miss on, it's about the guy, right? And one of the guys Alabama may get now is Dre Kirkpatrick Jr. This guy just earned an offer the other day. Excuse me, count. Said enough. His offer list wasn't like incredible before camp, but apparently he did enough at camp to impress. And there was also another kid who's a linebacker at Theodore you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, real interesting. Alabama's final camp of the whole summer was on Tuesday this week. Due to NCAA rules, you can only have camps now on certain days of the summer. You can't have a camp. You can't hold a camp in July until this final week, and Alabama chose Tuesday to have that camp. And they issued several new offers based on camp performances on Tuesday. And two of those guys are kids that might be familiar with the audience. And one certainly is Dre Kirkpatrick Jr., the son of Dre Kirkpatrick, who was a big star of the early Saban era. Dre Sr. signed with Alabama in 2009, was an immediate freshman starter, was a 3-and-done first-round pick of the Cincinnati Bengals, and then played 10 years in the NFL, 8 years for the Bengals. So a successful NFL player, a first-round pick. His son from Gadsden, Alabama, played at the same high school that Dre Sr. played for. He's a little different than his dad in a few ways. Number one, hey, let's admit, the dad was a big deal. Dad was a 5-star, a national top 30 prospect. Couldn't be any more highly hyped, and frankly lived up to it, at Alabama. Dre Jr., not nearly as hyped in terms of offers and rankings. He does have a handful of SEC offers. Alabama wanted to see him in camp in person before they offered. And he came to camp Tuesday, worked out before the staff, and the next thing you know, he's in Nick Saban's office with his dad and mom, and Nick Saban delivered the offer. He wants to make a decision in August. That's very likely to happen in August. I would consider Alabama a strong favorite right now for Dre Jr. Dad was a corner, son is a safety. He measured at Alabama's camp at 5'11", 198, ran right around a 4.65 40. Those are really good numbers. Again, shorter, thicker kid than Dad, more physical. Dad was a taller cover corner, but the kid is a little shorter, thicker, more physical. I think there's a good chance he ends up in this Alabama class. Again, won't be the most highly rated kid in the bunch, but Nick Saban very close to the Kirkpatricks, and Dre's, dad was so popular with the fans. I'm sure the kid will too. The other local kid, and when I say local, I mean in-state, Bobby Pruitt from Theodore, a real super interesting kid, also offered by Alabama. He's a 2024 guy, so he's in this class. He is committed to the University of Miami, and he committed to Miami about 2 months ago. Before he had ever camped at Alabama. 6'3", 180, has played a lot of safety in his career. It's thought that he's going to grow to be a 200-pound player in college and be a linebacker, big hitter. His dad, some people might remember from the Mobile area, his dad is Edric Pruitt, who played at Southern Miss back in the late 90s and then went on to become an NFL player. So great bloodlines, a lot like the Kirkpatrick kid, right? But Dad played at Southern Miss in this instance. Bobby Pruitt, again, more highly recruited than Dre Jr., committed to Miami, had several other offers. This was his first chance to come to camp at Alabama, walked out of there with an offer from Nick Saban. I don't know that he is what I would call the highest of priorities yet at Alabama. He's kind of a tweener, and I don't mean that insulting in a way. I just mean he's been a safety throughout most of his career in high school, but it's thought that he's going to be a linebacker in college. He's going to play linebacker in his senior year at Theodore coming up, but he's not even 200 pounds yet. It's just thought he's going to grow into that guy and get bigger. His dad was actually a 220-pound safety in the NFL, and his son is bigger than he was at the same age. So it's thought that he's going to be pretty big. And let me tell you, this guy's real athletic. I've seen a lot of tape of him. Playmaker, big hitter. I'm really interested. I think we'll just have to see where Alabama's board goes. I'm not sure he's a take. I think he's more of a, hey, let's just see how the board goes. But again, he's committed to Miami. It's not like he's not high profile.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously a pretty good player and somebody to keep an eye on. And, since Alabama can't get anybody else, I guess we'll just take what we can get.
Well, Auburn's taking all the guys we want since they've taken one guy in 3 years, but okay.
So, yeah, Jimmy, if you do want to go get guys you want, then you need to use LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team and helps you find them faster. All you got to do is go to LinkedIn Jobs, add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and who you'd like to hire. It's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to, and it helps you find them faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions may, and I bet they do, apply. Jimmy, on the next Locked On Bama, which we're not really sure when it's going to be just yet, but it'll be sometime, we will continue the countdown. And speaking of the countdown, we're about to get right back into the countdown. And the guy's name is Downs, Caleb Downs, one of my favorite players of all time. I'm being a little facetious, but yeah, I'm not trying to put any pressure on the kid. But he's awesome. We love him. He's shown here about to cause a fumble from Jalen Milroe, probably.
That's fun. Now that's legit funny.
So anyway, just wax poetic for a while. King Jimmy Stein on the Heath for Caleb Downs.
Well, I'm not the guy that's going to overrate true freshmen and their ability to impact things at a program like Alabama, where Nick Saban's Alabama is the best. It's the best program ever in the history of college football. Let's be honest. I mean, it's the longest running dynasty in the history of the sport. So I'm never going to say, hey, here's a true freshman that's going to show up and start and star. But we've all seen it happen with other guys like a Minkah Fitzpatrick. And Caleb Downs, I think, is extremely similar to Minkah. And it didn't take long for Caleb to make an impact. I mean, he's a true freshman. He signs in December. He shows up in January. It wasn't practice number 1 or practice number 2, but per all reports at the first public scrimmage, Caleb Downs was in the starting lineup. It didn't take him all of spring. It just took him a partway through spring to earn a spot with the ones. I fully expect Caleb Downs to start the Middle Tennessee game, even as a true freshman. I think he's the next in the line of these Saban freaks, for lack of a better word. These kids that show up, they're not only good enough to start, they're good enough to be the best players on the team. Caleb comes from a great family. His brother was just selected in the 3rd round, I think, in the NFL draft by the Colts. He's a wide receiver at North Carolina. Dad and mom were both college athletes. Dad played in the NFL. And Caleb is the next in the line from that Downs family. Again, recruited by everyone in the country. He's a top 5 prospect nationally, and he showed up and in no way disappointed. He's got every intangible. He's got every tangible. And I fully expect Caleb Downs to be in the starting lineup this fall against Middle Tennessee in the opener. I've got him as the 12th best player on the whole team, which is nuts considering he's never played in a college football game. And again, that would sound cheap if I did this all the time, but I really don't. I don't think it's fair to put that on freshmen, to put that on 18-year-olds. But Caleb himself has sold me on ranking Caleb this high. And frankly, I'm probably underrating him in terms of how good he is and what kind of impact he's going to make this fall. I think he's going to be in the start lineup, Luke, and I think he's going to be one of the best players on the team this fall. He's not a guy to watch for the future. He's a guy to watch in September.
I love the fact you said he's got all the intangibles and all the tangibles, which means you can literally touch his greatness, which ironically is the line I used when I first went on a date with my wife. Anyway, Caleb Downs is just awesome. And Josh Downs, I'm glad you brought him up. people sort of forget that Josh is Caleb's brother. There were rumors out there that Josh was going to transfer to Alabama. And if Josh Downs had transferred to Alabama, I feel quite certain we would at least have gone undefeated to the SEC title game.
Josh, good player. Good player. Played in North Carolina, quarterback, Drake May. I think he was a little disappointed that he went in round 3. I think he thought of himself as a first-round pick and highly productive. So Caleb's older brother, one heck of a football player, but Caleb even more highly rated coming out of high school than his brother was. And there's every reason to think Caleb's going to live up to the insane hype. Best player in the recruiting class. But again, he showed up in the spring. There's no way to report this because on 3 BOL, we're not at these practices. We can only depend on reports and on things that we hear. And then we see A-Day and we talk to sources that are at scrimmages and stuff. But Caleb Downs was apparently playing with the ones really early in spring practice, which is absurd. It's ridiculous, but he was. And the other guys I can name that did that were guys like Cam Robinson, Jonah Williams. It's just not. It's a small list of guys that all became first-round picks.
All right, Jimmy, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it's time to talk about a surprise player. Well, not really. It's right there on the little thing. So Chris Braswell. And we're back. So it's time to talk about Chris Braswell. Just as I promised, there he is right there, number 41 in your program, number 1 in your heart. And he is set to be unleashed. Let's hope he's unleashed. I think Chris Braswell has been one of the more criminally underused players. I didn't want to say underperforming because I think that makes it sound like it's lack of his effort. And I don't think that's what it is. I just feel like he hadn't been in the right place to make good things happen. Now, maybe it's injuries. Maybe it's something else. It just feels like we should be getting more out of Chris Braswell. And I don't think that's Chris Braswell's fault.
Well, he's one of the most interesting players on the team for that, exactly for your point. I have him ranked as the 11th best player on that team this fall. And here's how he's earned that. He's been basically playing with the ones for 2 seasons. Last year, he was so good that even though Alabama had 2 starting outside linebackers in Will Anderson and Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell was so good, they found a way to get him on the field as a 3rd outside linebacker. That's crazy. They invented an entire package, an entire new personnel scheme just to get him on the field. So that should tell you how Alabama's coaches feel about Chris Braswell, right? And that should mean, he's spectacular. He must be something else. And he is. Per PFF, Pro Football Focus, Chris Braswell last year was a top 10 pass rusher in America in terms of wins. And by what a win means in pass rushing, Luke, is when your job is to get to the quarterback and he's beaten the guy that's supposed to block him. He's beaten him and it's a win. He's top 10 in America at that. However, his sack number is pretty low. I think it was 2.5 or 3 for the year a season ago. And that's not a great number considering how many snaps he played. So for me, the challenge for Chris Braswell this upcoming fall is, hey, you're already whipping the guy that's supposed to be blocking you. You're an experienced player. You're a big physical player. Now the challenge for you is to finish the play, to get the quarterback sack, to get the tackle for loss, and let's dent the stat column. But there's no doubt that Chris Braswell in the past 2 years at Alabama has been highly impactful in terms of impacting the play and becoming a significant dude on the defense. But he needs to do a better job of finishing the play. I think 1 year better, he probably becomes that guy. And I think he's on the verge of being one of the better defenders in the SEC and probably no worse than a day 2 pick in the draft.
All right, I probably should have this information right in front of me, but I don't. And for some reason, I did just the me screen and then just you screen. But so was he on one of the all SEC lists?
No, he was not a postseason all SEC last season, nor was he preseason all SEC this season. And I get that because his overall stat numbers aren't great. But the PFF number about his pass rush win rate, I think is what they call it, pass rush win rate is spectacular, top 10 in the nation. So he's beating his dude. He's just not finishing the play. And that's the challenge for him, right? I mean, Nick Saban talks it all about the time, finish. And I think Chris Braswell is a half step short to this point in his career of having a double-digit sack season and being, no doubt, like a day 2 pick in the draft. Now it's his 4th year. It'll be his 2nd year as a consistent starter. So there's a lot of optimism here, a lot of confidence here. But at the same time, if you're a pessimist, you're like, okay, those sack numbers aren't very good.
Yeah, again, maybe for some reason, it's funny, like we kill some guys on here because they haven't lived up to their potential. And it feels like we're praising Chris Braswell because he hasn't lived up to his potential. But I cannot talk about your intangible. I cannot put my finger on this. I don't know why I don't think this is Chris Braswell's fault. And maybe just the number 41, it reminds me of guys like Courtney Upshaw or Ralph. Wasn't Ralph Staten number 41?
He was Ralph Staten was 41, yes. And
that's going back. For some of you that listen to this, you're all like, who the hell is Ralph Staten? Who was the other? Marcus, the other 41, he had a big interception against LSU in 19.
Marcus Carter, 41?
No, not Carter, not Marcus Carter. Marcus, in 1998, when Alabama came back to beat LSU, we had to have that onside kick. Sean Alexander scores, on a pass from Andrew Zhao. We had another who was Quincy Jack? Was it Quincy Jackson?
Quincy Jackson.
Yeah. He caught 2 touchdowns that both passes were tipped. And then Marcus Blank, number 41, intercepted the final play of the game because we kicked the ball trying to squib it, and we kicked it into their squib guy. And then he just fell on it, and now they're on the 50. And the first pass by, I think it was Rohan Davey, he throws a pick to Marcus Blank. Marcus who, Jimmy? Marcus, you can't be silent because there's some people who
I don't know.
Are like, Luke muted him.
Marcus Thornton.
Marcus
Robinson, Marcus Davis. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm
all right. I'm just gonna. This is great radio. Alabama, Marcus, 1998. That's what I'm gonna put in there and see.
Was he a walk-on? I want to say maybe
he was a walk-on who eventually
been a walk-on. Because it happened back then. That's something that would rarely happen today, especially Nick Saban's Alabama, that a walk-on will play. Marcus Spencer.
Marcus Spencer, yes.
Marcus Spencer. As a matter of fact, now I'm remembering. Marcus Spencer, his nickname was the Night Train.
Yes.
The Night Train. And he was a walk-on. That's
okay.
He was a walk-on.
This is how Jimmy and I are both diehard Bammers and getting old. We can remember parts of the game with this incredible accuracy. And then the one guy who made the play at the end, we can only get it half right.
That's us to a T right there. We did get that while other people were screaming at their radios or their laptops.
Jimmy
Marcus Spencer.
And listen, by the way, everybody, Luke, story time for a minute. I was at that game. It was really, truly incredible. Alabama's streak of not losing in Baton Rouge was still intact at the time. Obviously, they hadn't lost there since, I want to say it was like in the 60s. Like we had tied there in the 80s. But
69.
69. We had never lost in Baton Rouge since then, right? So LSU wasn't having a great year. They had Kevin Falk, who sort of ran all over us. We had Sean Alexander, though, and he makes a big run late, scores a touchdown. I know what happens. Andrew Zhao hits him on a wheel route for a touchdown, and they're like, okay, well, Alabama's back in there. They just need the onside kick. I think Marcus Spencer may have gotten the onside kick. I can't remember. No, he didn't. Somebody else did. But we kicked it. It is the worst onside kick you've ever seen. It went like way further than it needed to, but LSU misplayed it. We get it. And then we scored another pass to Quincy Jackson on a tipped pass for the second one in a row. And Marcus Spencer intercepts it. Well, meanwhile, before the onside kick, all the LSU fans, and I mean all of them that were left, it was kind of a drizzly day. I'm talking about all of them, came over to Alabama section and flipped us off. I'm talking about from age 4 to age 100. I must have been shot 7,200 birds. It was like Elmer Fudd in an aviary. People were just shooting birds everywhere. And I was like, okay, y'all won. I mean, congratulations. I mean, I felt like kind of like I did today with the Demarcus Riddick thing. I mean, some Auburn people are texting me going, wait, and I'm like, okay, good. I mean, I'm happy for you. Congrats. I mean, we're going to be all right. I don't know what you're trying to rub in my face. We're okay. And so I kept saying in 98, I was like, we're coached by Dubos. Of course we're going to lose. But they were coached by Jerry DiNardo, and we out DiNardo'd them.
Yeah,
So,
I wasn't there like you, so I wouldn't have those. But I will always remember Quincy Jackson catching 2 tipped passes for touchdowns and feeling like we haven't lost in Baton Rouge since 1969. Mike Dubos is the coach, and we still beat them with 2 tipped pass touchdowns.
It's incredible.
It just felt like Alabama at that point was really invincible in Tiger Stadium.
And not only that,
after all that, because I was not a good Alabama team at all. And but boy, Quincy Jackson enters his name into Alabama lore.
And not only that, at the end of the game, Andrew Zhao is the player of the game. And gosh, who was the guy on the sideline for CBS for a long time back then? He was sort of like the B team sideline guy. And he went to go interview Andrew Zhao. And Zhao, who at the time I guess was a freshman, Zhao, he was like, yeah. And he kept saying, hey, Mom. And like the guy was trying to interview him. And then the guy said, so Andrew, tell me about, and Zhao cuts him off and goes, what's up, Lake Butler? Because he was from Lake Butler. And the guy goes, work with me, son. I'll never forget. I got to find that video. I think Jimmy, did you freeze up on me?
Yeah, it froze up. It froze up a little bit.
On you? Okay, it doesn't matter. Well, we're done.
We're done talking about Chris Braswell. And since we spent most of the Chris Braswell segment talking about Quincy Jackson, who I'm sure has enjoyed this. I'm sure he's a fan of the show and listens all the time. But no, Chris Braswell's going to have a big year. He's just got to finish that last half step. Again, a great pass rusher. We're going to see more of him this fall. And in year 4, he'll be one of the most significant players on the team.
All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll catch you guys next time. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.